morning, everybody.
Good morning.
All right. Okay, I have up here, you guys want to introduce yourselves and why you're here?
Yeah, I'm Assistant Chief Eric Fitzgerald. I'm over investigations.
Good morning, I'm Commander Lee Davis. I oversee North Austin Command.
So where this homicide occurred?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we're here this morning to talk about the homicide and the shooting that occurred in the 900 block of East Breaker Lane on November 1st. One homicide and one person shot. Again, if anyone has information about this, make sure that you're contacting APD and you're coming forward with any information or videos that you may have. This location sits at the corner of IH 35 and Breaker Lane. And over the past few years, one of the things we want to talk about is the number of significant incidents we've had at that location. And unfortunately, this year has seen those numbers increase. And maybe Lee, you could speak to more on this. But in 2023, there were 34 calls for service at this location. And then already so that's for the year, 2023, 34 calls. And already this year, we've had 61 calls for service in 24. And so both the frequency and the intensities of these calls has increased. And as a result, most likely as a direct result of the presence of several nightclubs in this area, sports bars, and after-hour establishments. And some of the types of calls that we're seeing: aggravated assaults, celebratory gunfire, aggravated robberies, and nuisance criminal behavior, as well as, unfortunately, the homicide and shootings. So at this point, Lee has done a fantastic job of starting the process of a problem-solving project in this location, where we're looking at developing a plan that's going to include looking at these liquor licenses and these liquor establishments that are here. What is contributing to this rise in calls for service, this rise in crime in this area. So that is absolutely going to be a priority. Lee has got a meeting scheduled, I think, with the property management and the owners of those buildings, the people that have those liquor license and those after-hours establishments, and then getting their commitment to change and getting their commitment to work with the police on creating a safer environment for the people that go in this area. Lee, did you have anything you wanted to add to
Sure.
this? Come on.
Good morning, and first, before again, let me send my prayers and condolences to any of those folks that were involved and their family members. At the Austin Police Department, we believe that reckless, just violence in any form is an affront to the dignity and well-being of our communities, and we take them extraordinarily seriously. Since what Chief alluded to earlier, it is in fact true that the number of calls for service have increased, but it's not just the number of calls for service, but the intensity of those calls. So those calls are not only have impact on the community, but they're also a strain to our patrol resources. So we're working diligently to find resolutions to those. Nothing's off the table. We have been in contact with not only the property owners, property management, and again to the establishment owners as well. Some of the commitments we've gotten include everything up to the possible venue change. So we are meeting regularly. Those meetings are happening more frequently now that these events have occurred. This has been deemed one of our hot spots for quite a while. I think one of the things that I want to make sure we express that just because we're having voluntary compliance and collaborations, that by no means suspends or removes any of the processes that we have in play, that we're employing, or any of those cross-departmental resources that we're utilizing to address this issue. But I want to reassure the community that things are happening. They're happening aggressively and at a quick pace. We want to make sure that our communities know that we hear you, and when things are, you set our priorities, and so that's one of the things that have come out of this. We will be having community meetings where we solicit community input. We will be meeting with not only with Austin Police Department resources, but with other departments who have a stake in this. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commander Davis. So yeah, that goes to it, is when you're looking at these calls for service and you're looking at a location, we talk about hotspot, what does that mean? And that hotspot is when you're looking at a street segment of locations or blocks of area, what is going on in this location that's making it a hotspot? Why do people feel comfortable creating crime and disorder in this location? So it's about addressing that. I feel confident in Commander Davis's response. He'll have my support as well, my help. I'll be at those community meetings with him. So we just have to look at the why this is occurring. And so if it's bringing those other city resources, you're looking at violence interruption, you're looking at code enforcement, the liquor aspect of all this, and how we move forward with that. So now we're going to have our homicide detective come up and talk about the homicide.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you everybody for coming. Again, my name is Bradley Parks. I'm a detective with the Homicide Unit of the Austin Police Department. On Friday, November 1st, at approximately 1:43 a.m., the Austin Police Department responded to a shoot, stab, hot shot call in the Michelobos nightclub located at 900 East Breaker Lane. The caller stated that 2 males had been shot. When officers arrived on the scene, they found the 2 males, later identified as Tyler Cochran and Clayton Ty Teague, with apparent gunshot wounds. Cochran was pronounced deceased at the scene at 2:05 a.m. Teague was transported to a local hospital with life-threatening injuries, where he remains critical but in stable condition. The homicide detectives and crime scene specialists responded to the scene and interviewed the witnesses. The investigation showed that Cochran and Taiting had been involved in a verbal disturbance that turned physical. Taiting was able to gain possession of a firearm and then shot Cochran. The security employee working for Michelobos Sports Bar observed the shooting and then shot Taiting. Taiting is currently under arrest and will be charged with first-degree murder upon the shooting of Mr. Cochran. Do you have any questions?
Yes. Okay, so first off, who made the 911 call?
The security officer did.
Yeah.
There were multiple 911 calls, but the initial call was made by the security officer.
Okay, I think we've all seen the video probably, but in the video you can hear the first guy, so this is, I guess, Titine, shoots 9 times. Security officer basically unloads the clip. It's like 12 shots. Why is he not being charged with anything, the security employee?
Well, in Texas, we have self-defense law, right? And you're able to also apply that in the protection of a third party. What you didn't see on the video is what Taiting was going to do after he initially shot Cochran. Okay? And so, yes, the security officer did use his firearm as in self-defense.
What did it appear that he was going to do after he shot?
It appeared that he was going to go up and shoot Mr. Cochran again.
Have you been
Yes.
able to speak with the suspect to corroborate the witness's statements?
I have not. He is still in the hospital. He's heavily sedated, so I have not had a chance to speak with him yet.
So he has not been conscious since the shooting?
No, ma'am.
Chief Davis talked about this area. Can you define the area? Are we talking about the shopping center? Are we talking about, you know, East Breaker Lane in general? What is defined as the area?
Calls for service or the going up there?
Generally, when we're saying that 900 block, we're talking about that parking lot area. And so what's happening is generally it's during the after hours spot. We have units what are called the risk unit. Those are the resource intensive units. They handle those resource intensive calls for service. And the design was to respond and remove patrol back to services. What we're finding is over the time is this location is consuming a lot of those units, that resource intensive. And of course that obviously deprives the rest of the city.
You talked about meeting with these businesses and things like that prior to all of this?
Yes, ma'am.
When did that start?
So probably back in April, maybe around April, we began to notice that this location was consuming a lot of police resources during those after-hour spots, impacting our ability and capacity to handle other calls. And so at that time, we began to do what we call security surveys, where our district representatives go out to those properties and identify what's making this what we call a corrupt zone. right? Where there's convergence of many factors that make this an attractive nuisance to other folks to come there and commit crimes, or celebratory gunfire. So once we got a handle on what that looks like, we began to bring that to the attention of, okay, now we need to contact owners, not only the owners of the property, but his attorneys, but the owners of the other establishments, invite them to take a seat at the table. And so that incorporates just a lot of dialogue and conversations, and us sending a message, hey, that this one that's happened, it won't be tolerated, and what measures can you, we always seek voluntary compliance first, so what measures can you put on the table to help mitigate some of these? So again, we do what we call crime prevention through environmental design. So like, is lighting a factor? Is parking a factor? Are the hours, would adjusting the hours have a significant impact? And what types of businesses? Are there certificate of occupancies up to K? It's a granular, from a global and a very granular look at every detail, so that we can, obviously, number one, make sure our citizens are safe, but again, we want to also collectively make sure our own capacity, high volume crime anywhere affects the rest of the city.
Since y'all have been meeting since April, what are some of the factors that y'all have determined so far?
So, well, there are a number of them. Parking spots, the environmental design of the place itself, right? So I don't, if you have a location, I guess if you have any establishment like a club, you need large parking lots. So we have very limited parking, and then you have multiple of those types of venues. So whether it be lighting, I don't want to talk too much about some of the strategies that we're using. Some of them haven't fully come to fruition. Nonetheless, there are a lot of smaller issues that could be relatively easily mitigated. Now, we did get some commitment from the owners that, one, there'll be more security. Number two, there'll be more security cameras. And number three, and most importantly, that they'll take a seat at the table. We've had, prior to this, we didn't have that kind of fortune where people were really willing to come to the table. I think, sometimes you can be so close to something that you can't see enough. And so we're able to make this surely readily apparent now, and again, how serious we are at moving. And we have historically placed resources out there. Again, without giving up a lot of information, a lot of our resources have been out there, and we engage in what we call problem solving, problem oriented policing, and a lot of that begins scanning the area and getting a lot of information, and then turning that data into meaningful information, turn that information into intelligence that we could actually act on. So,
How many times would you say you've met since April with different?
I don't want to really give out that, and some of those meetings, I think giving out too much may make them more shy. And so, but we are in meetings not only with them, and in the very near future, we're opening up the meetings to the larger community. So since I've been there, which has been since roughly about April, we've been starting stakeholder groups. That's in just all of North Austin. And so now that area, when we're talking about Edward sector that I'm managing, is roughly about the size of Round Rock when you look at it respectively, in size, stature, and structure, staffing. And so what we're trying to do is establish stakeholder groups across the city in that area, that we can have people that can extend the reach. Everyone knows there's been some degree of staffing problems, but we can extend our reach by utilizing the community. So we can bring those stakeholders group to help, whether it be coming to the meetings, help find where those hot spots are, help us determine. One of the things we want to do with Austin Police Department is we want to be a community-led priorities. And so when the community tells us where those priorities, which is why I said, hey, when you speak, we're listening. When the community said this is a priority spot, we're putting a lot of resources to mitigate that.
Detective, follow-up question. In what you said in the press release, it says that the suspect was able to obtain a firearm. Video, you can see him grab it, or grab it from a different person. Could this person be facing any sort of additional charges to murder as technically a stolen firearm, something like that?
That part of the investigation is still ongoing.
Any other questions?
Let me think.
While she's thinking, I just want to make sure, we do rely heavily on help and assistance from the public. So I want to make sure we put out the phone number for Crime Stoppers, which is 512-472-TIPS or 8477, or by email, austincrimestoppers.org. again, if you were there, if you have any information, if any other cell phone video, all of those things are extremely helpful for our investigators. So we urge you to come forward.
It looked in the video like the security guard shot him in the back. You said that in Texas, even third party, you can.
Correct.
Shooting in the back, does that make a difference?
No.
Okay. I don't know the law, so.
Yeah, I think when you're thinking of the, for the self-defense, or the defense of others, right? So
Yes.
this man is actively firing a gun, and who knows the back of who else is around there? Is he gonna turn the gun? And so to think that this man had time to think about that, I don't think he did. So I think that's the charge of self-defense right there. Thank you all.
Thank you all.